He's right there.
This episode of the Bucktails podcast is brought to you by Pistol Creek and Decked Out Jon Boats.
Pick his head up. Yeah. Look at that. Woo. Good deer, babe.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Bucktails podcast. This is your host, Eli Self. And today with me, I've got Brett Cummings, Decked Out Jon Boats himself, as you can see by his hat there, if you're watching on YouTube. But he started Decked Out Jon Boats. And what year did you start that? How long has that been going, Brett?
I want to say 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. So how many? You got tens of thousands of followers, pretty much.
Yeah, I think I'm coming up on 45,000 right now.
Wow.
So it has definitely taken off and
wow,
kind of getting to be known out there in the fishing world.
Nice. No, that's impressive. So what all? I know Decked Out. You've got the Facebook group, and I'm going to share the screen here. It's not going to be super seamless, but let's see. So you've got a Facebook group that is a big, people will ask about, you can see how they're asking about different boats and setups, and it's just a great informative thing if you're not involved on that. He's got a website, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you can order and what all the website has to offer there, but you can see he's got a website. And so what all do you offer? I know you sell certain things. What all are you able to sell? What are you a dealer for?
I mean, I can get electronics, trolling motors. I'm an Array electric outboard and a Torqueedo dealer. I do aluminum hatches, pretty much anything you would need for your boat. I would much appreciate the opportunity to see if I can get a hold of it. In today's environment, it's hard to get parts for a boat. With all the craziness going on, a lot more people are spending time out there on the water. The boats have gotten a lot more expensive, so a lot of people are getting into the Jon boats, and that's kind of what Decked Out is all about. I actually started the Facebook group and the YouTube channel to help people, because being in an electric only environment like we are, they really don't make a boat that works for what we do. I mean, everybody adapts some boat that they pick up, but there is nothing that says, hey, you get this boat, this is what you do to it to make it work for you, and there is no blueprint for that.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely a big portion of the electrical only world that we're in. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I run Dahlonega Jon Boat Anglers, and I fish out of a fiberglass bass boat. It's like a late 80s winter. It's an 18-foot bass boat, but I get about 5 miles an hour, which is decent in the electrical only world. It takes some effort to get that fast. But there are boats that will get 15 plus 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, of course, up north, or running that pure watercraft. I know the guys up north are getting about 16, 17 with a Torqueedo 10.0, like I'm running. I've got about 9 is what I'm getting right now. I'm still kind of playing with my setup and everything, but the power is crazy.
No, I can imagine. That's me and you talked about that some outside of this, as far as, like you said, you're set up with a Torqueedo 10.0, and we'll go into your boat setup more here in a minute. But with your motor, you're getting like 9 or 10, like you said, and they're getting 17. And that's, same motor, same average boat size, but that's how much tweaking goes into this stuff. And people on Decked Out on the Facebook group all the time are like, man, what does a mile an hour mean? What does half a mile an hour mean? And in our world, it's like 5 versus 5.5 is massive.
Yes, I mean, that's getting to pick your spot versus not getting to pick your spot. You get there, the boat in front of you is already sitting on top of it. So,
right, and that's the range on these things. I mean, there's a lot of electrical only lakes in Georgia, and I know me personally, I think the farthest I went back on the Navionics app and kind of ranged out. Our farthest distance for a tournament was about 7 miles. It was a linear tournament, but 7 miles of running, that's pretty good,
Yeah, That's covering a lot of water.
But yeah, so while we're on the topic of boats, go ahead and let me know what your boat setup is. Is it aluminum, fiberglass? How long, brand? I mean, as much detail as you know want to give.
I've got an 1860 Express. It is all aluminum boat. It is double walled. So it is pretty heavy, just the empty hull. Built a wood deck in it about 4 years ago, and it's definitely seen better days. Like I'm just being careful trying to get it through this season. I am going to deck it out in aluminum. I've already got the hatches sitting. Probably can just barely see the top of them back there behind me. But I'll be decking that out in aluminum and doing videos on it. I am running that Torqueedo 10.0 with two of the 48 5000 lithium batteries. And you said you covered 7 miles. There's no telling how far I could go with that setup. It's phenomenal. It's truly all day power, fishing the bass tournament like we do. And it's been pretty flawless.
No, that's awesome. So it sounds like you've gone quite a bit into your tweaking already. But are you working on a new boat? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm actually building this boat for one of the guys that comes and fishes with us every once in a while, Senior Bass Fishing on YouTube.
Yeah,
He's coming up on 300,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. So, it's nice to have some connections out there in the the vast bass fishing platform that YouTube has become. So he comes and fishes high voltage with us, and he'll take this boat all over the country showing it off. So I'm trying to get him set up.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'd seen you post about it here off and on. I didn't know if you were making you a new boat or if it was for a client, but no, that's awesome. So what electronics do you have on your boat? Do you have is it Garmin, Lowrance? Are you partial to either one of them? What's your go-to?
Well, so I've been running Humminbird for a while. I've got two Humminbird 9s and a 10, and they've been awesome units. But I added a Garmin 93 SV with the live scope, and it's unreal. And everybody's like, "Hey, that's cheating." They need to make a rule against having that in bass tournaments. But the way I see it, and the way I can tell you, is that's just another tool. There's times where you're looking at that screen all day and it messes you up more than it helps you out.
Yeah, I could imagine. I know certain times it is definitely a leg up, and but that's it's still technology. It's nothing. It's not like it's catching the fish for you. You still have to put in the work. I mean, it is like I said. Sometimes it could be a leg up, and I can see the argument both ways, I guess. And there's hundreds of hours of videos I'm sure online of people arguing and fighting, and it's a very touchy subject to some people, but like you said, I feel like it could be very debilitating because me personally, if I'm in an area that might have fish in it, but if they're not up underneath my boat and I'm not seeing the bait or I'm not seeing the fish, my confidence is down, and but I could be casting on the fish. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I could see how being able to see even better with the Panoptics or like the live view. I think Lawrence and Humminbird both have those things out now too, but having that live view could be it's a two-edged sword. It's good, but it could hurt you at times. I've only got a Garmin Echo Map 73. It's a down imaging. It doesn't even have side view, but it's worked pretty good for me so far. And I'd love to have the live or the Panoptics, but not quite yet for me. But awesome. So otherwise, so the clubs that you fish high voltage, and then you're also involved with the Electric Elites. And we had Blake Yarder and Charlie Dick on here last month, and those guys are also involved. Are they with high voltage, or is it Five Alive that they're with?
So they bounce around and fish a few clubs. So Blake and his dad fish in high voltage as a
Okay.
team, and Charlie's fished with a few different people over the years, but they both fish high voltage also. But those guys are having a phenomenal year. Couldn't be happier for them. They won e propulsion at the TEC, and then they won two Elkos with the elites by having team of the year.
Yeah, that's an embarrassment of riches, and that kind of gets us to where we are. For you, while we're here, is you were the Electric Elites Classic champion. You can see that nice check behind you there for
Yes, sir.
6,500. And I'm sure there were other gear and other things that you won alongside that. Is that what the trophy is there as well?
Yes, sir. That is the classic trophy. Me and my partner both got one of those also.
Nice. So I do want to formally congratulate you on the air. So that is a feat, you know, like like no other. I mean, the field you're against, it's on hard labor, and we've talked about hard labor with Blake and Charlie, and now with you again. And there's reason for that. I think it's one of the best lakes in the state for electric only, and in the southeast. To be honest, but
Yeah, and I mean not just electric only, but I think it's one of the best lakes in the southeast.
yeah, I
Period.
mean
You can just
it takes 20 low 20s to win pretty much any time of the year. I mean, it's what was the date? That says July 10th. So July, middle of summer in Georgia. What was your winning weight for the classic?
uh so I think we had 20 and a half or so. We had one dead fish penalty, which a half a pound penalty. I think we were still at 1997.
Wow. So I mean, that goes to show you. And the two tournaments that we've discussed on this show, both of them were right at 20 pounds, and that's like you said, that's hard to beat. Anywhere in the South, gas or electric only. But going a little bit further into that, one of the reasons why you're here is the tournament story. So this is something new we started with Blake and Charlie, but my idea here is kind of an hour by hour rundown and the reason why I want to do this is because anytime I see someone with a 22-pound bag or a 15-pound bag or 12-pound bag, whatever it might be, and they won, I'm like, man, I want to know, was that rehearsed, so to speak? Did you practice? Did you know what you were doing? Was it like you pulled up on a spot and they were just there? You had no idea that was there. You found a brush pile midday, or was it? Did it change the day of? Did the weather screw you over? Did the weather make it difficult, or was it completely planned? So that's kind of whenever I see someone won, I'm like, man, I wonder what they did, or not specifically what they did, but you get the idea. Like, was that like how'd you do it? So all in all, just give me kind of a rundown of your tournament day, and I think you have a jig with you to show kind of what you did and how you did it.
I
But
do.
yeah, take it away. It's your story, however you want to tell it.
So really, we had an off week with high voltage. Usually, I'm pretty much fishing a tournament every weekend, or well, every weekend that I'm off. I actually had to take off for all the elite tournaments. Um, so the weekend before I was off with high voltage, that gave me the opportunity to actually spend some time out there on the lake because I really very rarely get to pre-fish for any of the tournaments. So I headed down, and everybody had been reporting. I'd been hearing rumors that there was a topwater bite. People catching 22 pounds on topwater. So what I actually did is I looked at the moon phase, and we were coming up on a new moon. So really, I was already in the back of my head. I was thinking, man, I think that shallow water deal is gonna kind of go away because I think those fish were up there on the brim beds, eating brim. So I spent some time out there just mapping and trying to learn some new spots, uh, anticipating that the fish would move out deep. Um, so we go up, under the big bridge, go all the way, probably 3/4 of the way back at least. And so we did start out with top water just to see. We ran one little pocket, and I was like, I'm just not feeling this. So we turned around and headed out to a point. We were fishing down the side of the point, just kind of working our way out towards the end of the point. And when my trolling motor swung around, I looked down on my Panoptics, and I saw a tree standing out there. I fired my jig out there, and that was big fish of not only the day, but big fish of the tournament. 8.6. So when you start your day off like that, things are going pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's incredible to find a spot you had never seen before. And you know what? I'm gonna try that. And then 8.5 pounder. That's ridiculous.
So another story that kind of got me back on track, because the night before I got off work at 8 o'clock. I got home by 8:30, and all day at work I was thinking about this tournament. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Just like we were talking about, speed makes a big difference. I was like, I'm going to, pare down my tackle. I usually carry a whole Bass Pro Shop in the boat with me, just for any situation. So actually, on this boat behind me, I got all my tackle out and got a few boxes and really, really cut my tackle down. I got to the lake Saturday morning. I didn't put it back in the boat. All I had was what was tied on my rods on the deck of the boat that day.
Oh man, I bet you were sick, especially a tournament. Any tournament, but especially the classic for the electric elites. The best of the best. Like, man, that would have thrown me for a loop. I mean, I hope that I would have been able to calm down and still do it, but I mean, man, that's like kudos even more so. I mean, you had told me that I talked to you at some point a couple weeks ago, but no, kudos even more so to have only the stuff tied on. Man, that
I
that's the
mean,
stuff of nightmares right there.
all you can do is put it in the good Lord's hands, and go out there and do what you can do, and what's supposed to happen is going to happen. It doesn't matter if you have all the equipment in the world or if you only have what's tied on the deck. When it's your time, it's hard to mess it up.
Yeah, when that's like you said, I love putting things in the good Lord's hands, and it sounds like you had prepped the right way. And man, that's it's got to be very encouraging. Reinforcing that you had the right thing going on because you couldn't change. You had what you had, and it worked out. So that's awesome.
Well, thankfully, I keep about, probably 10 rods on my deck minimum. So I had a few choices, but I never lost a bait all day. There was one bait I cut off in a drop shot fish. It may have been our second biggest fish. I'm not really sure. Like, after you put an 8.5 pounder in the boat, when that thing looked like it filled up the whole net when Gary set it down on the deck, the rest of them are kind of, you're just catching and culling. But I did cut off a drop shot in a pretty good fish, one that we probably weighed in. But besides that, I would get hung in fishing line, and I would just have to pull, and thankfully my line was always stronger than there was.
Yeah, not losing anything at Hard Labor Creek is a feat in itself too. My first time fishing hard labor was at the TEC. And I heard the stories of you better throw a 20-pound test minimum. There's limbs and sticks everywhere. So, and if you've never been there, listeners, it is. I'm talking tens of thousands of stick ups. I mean, it's great fish habitat, but it can humble you very quickly, and that's
That again, and
hooking the fish and getting them in the boat is a feat down there because my dad fished with me in the TEC, and if you've listened to the other episodes, you've heard this story already. But we ended up with two keepers on the day, and we had probably 8 or 9 keeper bites. We lost every other one. They'd get tangled up in the wood, wouldn't have a good hook in them. They'd jump and throw it. I mean, that was our day the entire day, and it was just sloppy fishing. So to not lose any baits, and two to get the fish you needed in the boat. I mean, it's kudos. So congrats again. But so what
I
y'all
think
do
that
after that?
that stuff is starting to thin out a little bit. Getting kind of brittle. So when you do get hung up, chances are you either pull up the little tree that you're hung on or break off the limb. And I think that lake's going to start fishing a little bit differently. But um, so after we fished that point where I caught the big fish, I did catch another keeper on it. We headed up in one of the rivers, and so we came to a point and just got some rocks on it. So we started on, I guess you would say, the downriver side of it. And Gary caught two that were just keepers, just 12-inch fish. But we moved around and actually came out in the sunshine, and we didn't catch any more. So I was like, well, let's turn around and go back into the shade and fish down that bank a little ways. And that's when I caught that second biggest fish on a drop shot. And it was tangled up in those trees and stuff like you were talking about, but it was up shallow. And we actually got up there, and Gary reached down in the water and pulled one tree up, and my line came off of it. This is 7-pound test line. The fish was hung up in another tree. We got over there, and I was like, hey, just get the net. I can see the fish down there. And he went to grab the net, and the fish just swam out. And I pulled it up the top, and he netted it.
Yeah, that makes my nerves a little shot. 7-pound test, getting wrapped up, man. That's crazy. But talking about the shade, that's something that I've more recently started paying more attention to. Is looking whenever I'm looking at a map, trying to think, all right, this bank ought to be shaded, that bank ought to be in the sun, and finding out what works on certain days, or maybe it's a shade line. And of course, that shade moves. And we fished on Cedar Creek this past Saturday with the club. And I got on one spot and I called twice, throwing into the shade. And then I went on down the bank. I was trying to stay in this one little area that I was, getting bit. And then when I turned back around and came back, the shade I caught those two fish I called with was gone. I'm like, well, dang, this is going to change some things. But no, shadows and shade is something that people I think kind of discount a little bit.
Yeah.
As
Yeah, and
far as
it's
whenever they're
important. I mean, in the spring, you want to fish it in the sun, like especially like when they're going on the bed. When they first start going on the bed, you want a sunny area where when they're about to be done spawning, you want an area that's in the shade more. Same thing, you get into the summertime, kind of want to stick to that shade. And sometimes when that shade gets small, it kind of concentrates the fish in it, and you can smash them. That happened to us in the TEC. We had big fish in that tournament also, but late in the day we went flipping and lost another giant, and that's what it was. There was inches of water up there, but you could flip up in the shade where a tree was, and we caught quite a few like that.
wow, that's impressive. But definitely something to look at whenever you're going pre-fishing and trying to find out what should be in the shade. And it's being able to find a pattern. If you know if it's wind blown and shady, it might be right. And find another point like that on the lake that might produce another bite for you. But no, that's interesting. So how many keepers are we out now in your story? What have y'all?
I
What,
think we've got a limit,
okay.
and we've got two small fish. Then I started working my way back down, and caught another decent fish that we weighed in. So that gave us three good fish and two just squeakers. Um, so in the last probably hour and a half, we actually went down and fished on the dam, and caught two more times down there on the dam, and that gave us the bag. We really didn't catch. We might have caught 8 fish that day. We were just lucky enough to catch the right ones.
Yeah, and that's part of it. I feel like the better days I have is you hit it right at the right time, and you might only catch 7, 8, 9 fish, but it's the right ones, and being able to call, and that's you know a job in and of itself is being able to call correctly, especially the lakes that we fish up here in North Georgia. Some of these things, like you'll have a pound separating first through 10th place, or third through 10th. So being able to call and making sure you're gaining ounces whenever you can is important. But yeah, no, definitely. You don't have to catch 20 to have a solid day. So that's something else. And maybe a new tournament angler, if you're listening, if you see someone who's got a 20.5 pound bag like Brett, he didn't catch 30 fish that day. He had 8 bites. Like
That's one thing
it's
that
not always lights out numbers wise, but you get the right ones and you've got it whooped.
it's another thing Gary and I were talking about. I was like, when you come in with a big bag, people think you had this awesome day. Well, when I caught that first fish, when I went to swing it in the net, I hit Gary in the face with my rod, knocked his hat in the lake, and I was like, it's just like magic. You come in, you got a big bag. People are like, wow, they had a great day. When really you just caught the right fish.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's one of the reasons why I like these tournament stories, because in the picture they're like, man, they had the best day, nothing went wrong, and you were with 10 baits total probably, and to your name, and nothing, no backups, no extra jigs, no extra, spinner baits, whatever. I mean, that's why I like these stories. That's why it's interesting to me.
So this is the jig that I caught all of the keepers on, everyone that we weighed in on.
Wow, the one that is
This
a
is
six
the one.
thousand. That's a over a $6,000 jig now, wouldn't it? All right. So, what brand did you make it? Is it a brand that's
No,
near you?
it's a dirty jigs. I like it because it's got a really heavy hook on it, like we were saying. Got to get those fish out of the cover and on the way to the boat. So it's got a really heavy hook on it. I throw on 25-pound fluorocarbon, and that way, they've got to be doing something to break me off.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially like I was saying earlier, especially down there at hard labor, having the heavier line in addition with the heavier hook is definitely something you've got to do to have odds in your favor. It's not saying you can't do it, like you said on 7 pound test, but I like having everything in my favor that I can.
Yeah, exactly.
No, well, good deal. So, tell me a little bit more about the overall tournament field. How many were fishing it in the classic? Was it pretty close to second place and third place, or did you blow them out?
Uh, to be honest with you, I missed all of the way in. I mean, when I weighed my fish and went down to release them, took pictures, and I was talking to people because that's really why I fished that trail. I mean, we have some great anglers in electric only, and besides the TEC, I only got to see them once a year. So I wanted to fish the TEC to get to fish against some of that other great talent that we have. So I think Chris Gayton and Aaron Cole got second place. I think they had 18 and some change, which is a pretty good bag. Um, and then couldn't really tell you what happened after that. I know
Gotcha.
Chris was walking down with his fish as me and Gary were pulling back up the ramp, and he said, "Congratulations, guys, y'all got it." And I didn't know if he meant that we had him or if the weigh-in was over and we'd actually won. Um, so
Dang.
pretty awesome to win the biggest electric only tournament.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this is even like as far as payout goes, and prizes. I would assume that the classic was probably more so than the TEC as far as monies paid out. And I'm not sure what the total prize or the value of the e
Yeah, the
propulsion was, but it'd be close, I guess. But
yeah, I imagine it's about the same ballpark, I would think.
right, right,
But actually, I got this jack behind me for 65. I had big fish for the year and big fish for the tournament, so that netted me, a little bit more. And then we got some rods and some other cool things that went along with it also.
nice. So big money payout. Awesome day because that was the reason for it there. And you're saying that Chris and Aaron ended up with 18 and change, and I'll post the weights on the video when I edit it. But so for a touch over 20 pounds before deductions, and then 18 to be second place. That also to me is hard labor kind of flexing its muscles. Same way in the TEC, I think there were two bags over 19, really close way in there. I mean, it's one thing if you've got one team at 20 and then the second place is at like 11. So if people ask me, "Oh, what did it take to win?" I'll be like, "Well, it took 13 to win and 11 was second." I like to always throw in that second place because you could have one person catch a 9 pounder and everyone else catch nothing, and that's. So all in all, I looked at the results and I'm pretty sure it was a lot of teams in the teens, 14, 15, a lot of teams in that range. So, a lot of really good bags weighed in. So, again, like you were saying, hard labor is one of the best lakes outright in the state. As far as every single tournament is you better have pushing 20 pounds or more. So, no, that's incredible. But so overall, Thank you so much for coming on. Did you want to give any other shout outs? I know you wanted to talk about Torqueedo a little bit. I don't know what kind of partnership you have with them or if there is one, but anybody you want to shout out or just anything else you want to add?
Well, Torqueedo actually reached out to me. And I was fortunate enough to be one of only four guys in a John boat that are on the Torqueedo fishing team. Um, there is Brian the Carpenter. Um, there's some guys up in Maryland that I'm kind of getting to know a little bit. They actually had a perfect season. They won every tournament they fished up there last year. Um, and then Kevin Brook in Virginia, who fishes with Rippin' Lips Open Series. They have an open series up there. It's 36-volt limit, and they pretty regularly have 40 to 50 boats in the tournament.
Yeah, I've been semi following the Rip and Lips Open Series and seeing the numbers of boats they bring out. That's almost unfathomable for a club event here,
Yeah.
mainly because of the lake sizes. Like we've had to cap our numbers are kind of down as far as attendance goes, but we have to cap off our membership at 20 boats. And last year we probably could have had 30 members, but the lakes we fish, we can't fit 30.
Yeah.
Hard labor you could, but our normal regular season events, we can't fit them. So they must have some really good. I mean, I know they're very well ran. I think did you interview the
I
ones
did
who run
Melissa
that?
Cusick.
Gotcha. I was thinking I saw that video. But yeah, very well ran, very professionally done. But yeah, and that's a testament to having 30 and 40 plus boats every time. There's a reason why they come back. No, but that's awesome to be Torqueedo pro staff, I guess would be the terminology there. One of only four electric only guys, so that's awesome. And that you had what was it, a Ray electric?
I
Is that what
did.
you
I
had?
had a 72-volt Ray. They just came out with those. This year was the first year for the 72. I ran 60 volts for 3 years. It's another great motor. I tell everybody it's like the 2500 diesel pickup truck. Like that thing just works, and
Yeah.
it's hard to break that thing.
Yeah, no, that's the way I am. That would probably be a good motor for me. I tend to be rough on my things sometimes, and I like things to just work. but but no, that's awesome. I might be in the market for an electric outboard at some point. I'd love to get into that. Right now, my setup is I've got two 36 volts on the back, and then just a 12 volt on the front. So I want to upgrade the front motor next. But as far as financially, if you're a listener trying to get into this thing, you don't have to have the 60 volt, 72 volt, the big, 20 horse electric outboards. Like I run about 5 miles an hour all day. I never have to worry about any battery issues. And some of the electric outboards will operate at what, 150, 180 amps. And if you don't have the money for the lithium batteries, that can really make an issue, getting, having the entire tournament day. So there is a way in without having to spend all the money. But comparatively, this is going back to the TEC. My dad was seeing all the boats, and I think there were a couple of boats that had two E propulsions or two Torqueedos, two Elcos, $10,000+ rigs. And my dad was like, "My goodness, why do they spend that kind of money?" I'm like, "Well, if they came from the bass fishing world, the big boat, gas boats, they may have dropped $45,000+ on just the boat. And in this world, they might have 20 and everything with the electronics and all, and they got the best boat in the state. So it's
See, that's kind of what happened to me. I started fishing with high voltage about 1996. And back then we didn't even, there was no electric outboards that we knew of. I had two 107s on the back of my boat and an 86 on the front, and everybody thought my boat you could ski behind it. The first time I saw a Ray electric outboard, the guy had it on a Torqueedo and a canoe. Sorry. So he had that Ray on a canoe, and man, he just ran off and left us. By the time we got up to where you could see down that right arm at Varner, he was halfway down it already, and that just blew me away. So that I'd always wanted a Ray, and I left and went to the big lakes and really got tired of getting beat up with all the boat traffic. And so I put electronics on my my 1448 that I still had from my electric only days, just to get better at my electronics. I wanted to hit a brush pile with every cast, no matter what angle, and kind of get a feel for how far away from it I was. And the more time I spent on these electric only lakes, the more I realized, hey, why in the world don't you just get rid of the bass boat, build you a nice electric only rig, and come out and enjoy yourself?
And it sounds like that's kind of where Decked Out Jon Boats came from, is, through your build. And I think that's a great outlet for people who, are trying to get into it. And I mean, I love scrolling your page on Facebook because it's countless questions. It's people, hey, here's a picture of my rig, here's what I'm doing. And then there's a couple of guys that are builders that Brigade Boats. I think he has a YouTube channel as well. But so a few builders who will post their updates, and it's really neat to follow and see what kind of detail some of these guys are getting into. And that's like what you're doing is, top level. You've been in it, like you said, since '96 doing electric only tournaments, you know, and some people are just now starting to do it. So it's a wide range. You can get into it for $1,000, or you can get into it for 15,000 plus. And that's
Yeah, I
what I
mean,
like about it is you can, even if you've got the nicest boat, the fastest boat, you can get tore up by a guy in a 12-foot John boat with a 12-volt motor on the back and a cooler for a live well. And I mean some of those guys are the best anglers that you'll ever meet too. Good guys, but.
right. Never underestimate these electric only guys. And you can get in it for cheap. And the more you progress and the faster you want to go, the more the money starts to climb. So,
No, for sure. But all in all, thank you so much for coming on. We've had a good discussion about your tournament story, kind of where you came from as far as electric only. I like that we got to talk about that a little bit, about why you are doing the electric only stuff. But yeah, it's a growing field. I see a lot of as things get more available as far as the lithium batteries, and like even with electric vehicles like cars, as it gets more readily available, the price will come down some, and there'll be more options out there for people, more competition price wise. And I'm excited to see where it'll be in 10 years or 5 years.
I am.
You know,
I
you
am
know,
too. I really think that electric only John boat fishing is going to be the next kayak fishing, and you're going with the cost and the availability of lithium batteries coming down. I think we'll start seeing electric only boats even on the big lakes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I saw a video somewhere that they had made. It was like it may have, I think, I don't want to misquote it. It may have been a 250 horse equivalent electric outboard, and it was a proprietary type deal. It wasn't released yet. It was like one company had made it, but the capability is there. It's just a matter of funding to come up for the companies and things like that. But
Then
no,
I think
I'm
I
excited.
think that motor was like $71,000. So
Yeah, yeah. You
when you
probably
get
saw
the
the same
cost down,
video.
then it makes it realistic.
Right, right. But all right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've had a blast talking to you and hearing about your tournament story, and
Yes,
just
sir.
the
Anytime.
perseverance you had to go through. Not having your tackle and whatnot. That's an amazing story.
Anybody sees me out there on the lake, don't hesitate to come over and say hey. Just I'm fishing a tournament and keep your distance a little bit, but introduce yourself and wave at me and come see me at weigh-in.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
The Bucktails Podcast, brought to you in part by Trick Sporting Goods in Dahlonega, Georgia.